Yeah.
Actually, last week we had a song that we cut out of our set because of time. And I love the song so much that told Dan, we're going to do it this Sabbath.
All right, man.
Great is thy faithfulness, O Lord my Father. There is no shadow of turning with thee. Thou changest not, thy compassions they fail not. As thou hast been, thou forever will be. Great is thy faithfulness, great is thy faithfulness. Morning by morning, new mercies I see. All I have needed, thy hand hath provided. Great is thy faithfulness, Lord, unto me. Summer and winter and springtime and harvest, sun, moon, and stars in their courses above, join with all nature in manifold witness to thy great faithfulness, mercy, and love. Great is thy faithfulness, great is thy faithfulness. Morning by morning, new mercies I see. All I have needed, thy hand hath provided. Great is thy faithfulness, Lord, unto thee.
That is a praise. That is a
You know, some of those old hymns are so classic and they're so beautiful. When you sing them, they just really stretch down deep into your soul.
praise. One more time, Terry.
We are standing on holy ground, and I know that there are angels all around. Let us praise Jesus now. We are standing in His presence on holy ground.
Let us praise Jesus now. We are standing in His presence on holy ground. We got someone special coming up today. Let's give him a hand, huh? Woo! Everybody say hi, Logan.
Hello. Oh, there we go. This is Logan.
Hi, Logan.
He does not like the lights, but he says hi. He really does like your music, though. Yeah, he's chilling, literally. Anyway, hello. We're back. Yeah, it was a whirlwind last Friday. This week's been pretty chill compared to last Friday. I have one announcement, and that is next weekend is birthday weekend. So after church, 1:30 at the Medallion, is our monthly birthday party. If you have a birthday in, this is April now, right? April? Then we're celebrating you. Arnold, who has a birthday in April? Logan. Anyone else? Does anyone else here have a birthday in April? Doug's got a birthday? No, yours is May, dude. Anyway, birthdays in April is what we're celebrating next week, April 20, 1:30 at the Medallion. If you need directions to get there, follow someone who knows what they look like, they know what they're doing. But Tom is a good person to talk to, Pastor Dan, Bill. There's Bill. There's a few of us that know. So, happy Sabbath. I'm glad I'm here. I'm glad you are here as well. And you must be ready.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Happy Sabbath.
Let's give her a big hand. You know, it's pretty remarkable. Aaron, I wanted to have you tell us about the adventure of having him, but then Lisa said, "Don't do that. It's not cool. You don't do that with women. If they want to talk about their labor and delivery, you have to go there. But man, it's quite a story. Quite a story. So we're glad you're here, Logan. Logan Christopher Will. So it's fantastic. And Stephen, we're happy for you, brother. You got your own brother, and for better or worse, he's here. Congratulations. Well, you know, I'm preaching a series, and I didn't really intend to have a series, but, you know, I was preaching this sermon, and I came to that text in 2 Corinthians 5, 6, and 7, where it says, you and I are God's ambassadors, and that God is making his case to the entire world through who? You and me. So God is making his grand case to the world through you and me. We're his ambassadors. And so what is the job? The job description is we are to what? Reconcile people. Where? To him. So the purpose of the church is to reconcile people where? To God. And Jesus made that all possible. That is the message of the church. I was and I have always loved that. And that's actually been a text that's been important to us here downtown. So I said, you know, after I preached, I said, I'm going to go home and read the next chapters. And, ooh, man, things got really ugly. And it was like the first time, it's not like I haven't spent a little time in Corinthians over the years. And it's not like I haven't studied it at college and seminary. It's just that sometimes there's a readiness level for you to ask certain questions or just get something. And all of a sudden, it was so odd to have such a powerful text like that, and all of a sudden, that book goes south. I mean, the last 4 chapters is nasty. And so you're saying, okay, because you see, as we get older, we begin to understand that our lives are really, so many conflicted emotions are running parallel tracks in our lives. Isn't that true? So many things. And so at first I'm saying, why would he make this gorgeous statement and then muck it up by being so negative and combative and confrontive? It didn't seem to make sense to me. And then I realized, it's really quite true to life. So many things that we feel and experience are happening simultaneously. And it's almost like this book is a reflection of so many things that we think and feel at the same time. And Paul, instead of writing this smooth, nice little book, just put it out there in this very raw form. It's not the way you would want to set up a book, really, from a psychological standpoint in today's culture. He's just writing to them. So there's been a lot of confusion with scholars. They're saying, well, you know, what's going on with that? And there's all kinds of stuff. So then I went back to 1 Corinthians, the first book, and I started reading that. And it was like, what a glorious book, huh? And what's the pinnacle? There's two chapters to me that are the pinnacle. 1 Corinthians 13, which is what? And then 1 Corinthians 15 is really that text, that passage that we use so much when people die. And it's one of those texts where Paul says, death is swallowed up, what? In victory. Oh, death, where is your power? Oh, death, where is your sting? And then he says, because of Jesus, we no longer have the sting of death on our backs. And, in fact, death will now die instead of us. So you got these brilliant passages. I went through and I read, and Herman did this too. He read the 1 Corinthians. It was like, well, you know, that's a disjointed book too. I mean, it's just not a smooth book. And so I started to wonder, you know, you have two different books not written at the same time. I'm wondering, what's going on there? Huh? I mean, you just don't write that kind of a letter unless what? Why would you write a letter that's this and that all over the place? Why would you do that? Unless what? He's answering questions, but he's also writing to exactly what is what? Going on. Now that tells you one thing right there. That the church in Corinth, just by looking at those books, you don't even have to read them. Look it up online and just look at the flow of the thoughts in 1 Corinthians and 2 Corinthians. And they have it all. People have sparsed this all out. It's all outlined, okay? You can look at that without reading it and say, man, I wonder what's going on there. I wonder what's going on there. 1 Corinthians is considered the ultimate pastor's manual. And when you start realizing what he's reading, what he's talking about, you start to go, you know what? I got to look at this book differently now because, yeah, I've got my favorite chapters, you know, but, man, that's not what this is about. This is about a church that is extremely complicated, and Paul doesn't have a great relationship with them. And you're saying, okay, well, by 2 Corinthians, he's probably got that all worked out, right? Right? So by 2 Corinthians, everything's smooth, right? No, it's worse. It's worse. So then I started reading. And I'd kind of known this before, but we know a little bit more about the church in Corinth and Paul than I really first acknowledged personally. It seems that 1 Corinthians is not the first letter that he wrote. Which letter? It's the second letter. The Corinthians Paul wrote them a letter. We don't have that letter. Now, Paul started that church. He lived there for 18 months. After that, he got on a boat and went to Ephesus and started the church in Ephesus, about 80 miles away by water. He lived in Ephesus for 3 years. So these books are written when he's where? Ephesus, and he's writing back to the church that has just started. He started that church. Well, evidently, Paul wrote them a letter, and we don't have that. Evidently, they wrote him a letter back with all kinds of questions. We don't have that. So all of a sudden, what do you got going on here? From our perspective, looking back, what do we have and what do we not have? Oh, man. You know, how you start a dialogue with somebody, how critical is that? So we're getting in on this thing, round two. Round two. His first letter from Ephesus, we don't have. And the letter they wrote back to him, we don't have. What we have is 1 Corinthians, which is 2 Corinthians. Does that make any difference? Well, I can't look at 1 Corinthians the same anymore, can I? If I'm going to try to be on any level some kind of a scholar, I've got to realize something. I'm coming in mid-sentence on something, which means I really don't know what's really going on. I only know what I know. You only know what you know. And all we have is the 1 Corinthians. We don't have the first two. All right. So what happens after the 1 Corinthians is written? Anybody know? No, Paul went to see him. I think it's that one. Yeah. What I do know is that he wrote another letter. Either he didn't get the response he wanted, or he went to see him. I think he went to see him after the third letter, and I can flush that out for you. What's important is that a third letter was written, and we don't have that one. So you have a dialogue taking place over a couple of years. You have the first letter, we don't have. You don't have the response. We have the second letter. We don't have a third letter. We have no response, anything that they talked about. It's after that third letter that evidently Paul went to visit them. After that third letter, things were that bad. I wonder what was in the third letter. Wow. He said, I'm getting on the boat. I got to go. Paul himself says in 2 Corinthians, how did that visit go? Not good. It was not successful. Paul went himself after that third letter, and it did not go well. And he left. He gets back to Ephesus, and what book does he write? Nope, 2 Corinthians, which is really which book? The fourth book. So what are we missing in this story? First letter from them. We're missing a third letter, whatever happened in that third letter. And we're missing a personal visit from Paul that did not go well. And then we have the fourth letter. So how much really do we have? Not even 50%. Because we don't have a report on that visit by him except that it did not go well. And he says so himself. All right. We also have it on good record, according to some of the early church fathers, that Paul, before he went to Rome, went by the church in Corinth one last time, and he spent a few days there. We have no idea what happened then. So you've got all of this stuff. Okay. Now, I'm going to look at the Bible here, and you're going to look at the Bible. And now what do we know about these two letters that we did not know before?